Hello, welcome back to Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. We're so happy that you're here. Thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry. Today we're going to talk about handling and storing farm fresh eggs, just briefly. And we're also going to talk about a technique you can use if you've got some eggs that you're like, oh, it's a little bit iffy. I don't know, can't remember when these eggs were laid. Is it okay to eat them? Should I throw them out? Got a technique you can use to answer that question. So thank you for joining us. Again, please do press subscribe. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers because we want to be able to apply to YouTube to benefit from the video content that we produce. Whenever we post videos, YouTube has access to benefit from them, but we have to meet a couple of benchmarks before we can apply for that access too. So one of the benchmarks is 1,000 subscribers. So please do consider subscribing. All you have to do is press subscribe, and we appreciate you helping us out that way. Thank you so much. So going to get right to looking at the eggs that we collected today. We are getting about 2 dozen eggs a day from the hen house that has 24 Isa Browns and a couple of older hens in it. So I love all the browns, the shades of brown on those eggs, and really love that light blue-green egg. I know that it's a lot different than the commercial brands of eggs. Those are typically all white eggs. Something that's really interesting about the colors of eggs is that on these brown eggs, even though they're different shades on the outside, that's coloring that's actually applied during the egg making process inside the hen's body. And when we crack these brown eggs open, the inside of the shell is actually white, just like the store eggs. So I find that so interesting. But something notable is that these blue-green eggs, it's not the case with them. They're the same color inside of the shell that they are. The shell itself is the same color on the inside that it is on the outside. So that's just the color of the egg. And then in this case, that's a white eggshell on the inside. That coloring has been applied to the outside of the egg by the hen's body. So I find that really, really interesting. Also, we're conditioned to think that eggs need to be stored in the refrigerator. But then you often hear people that have chickens say, well, those eggs are safe at room temperature. So how does that work? Well, that's the main thing we want to talk about here briefly in this video. It's amazing that the hen's body actually applies basically natural, stay fresh packaging to an egg before the hen lays the egg. So it takes a hen about 24 to 26 hours to produce an egg before it's laid. And part of that process on the brown eggs is applying these outer coatings of coloring. But a very important process on all the eggs that happens is that basically a sealant is applied to the egg. So think about like your skin has pores in it. Eggshells have pores in them. And this sealant covers those pores and seals them so that bacteria cannot get into the egg. And that's called the egg bloom. So as long as that egg is there, this egg is safe, food safe at room temperature, and then it can be cooked thoroughly and it's food safe to consume after you've cooked it thoroughly. So that will hold true for about 3 weeks as long as that egg bloom is intact. But the kicker is once this egg is washed, it washes that bloom away and that sealant is no longer there protecting that egg. So it's at that point that that egg needs to be kept refrigerated, needs to be kept chilled. So any eggs that have been washed, you need to keep them in the refrigerator. And when they're washed and chilled, they're good for about 3 months from when they were laid. So what about that though? What if you don't know when they were laid or you can't remember when they were laid and it's kind of iffy, like, is this egg okay to eat or is it past its prime? Should I throw it out? So you can do the egg float test. And at first when I would use the egg float test, I could never remember what the results meant. So you can do what I did. I had to Google it every time that I used it. But basically to do the egg float test, you just fill a bowl with water deep enough that the egg can be sunk in it and totally submerged. And so if the egg stays down at the bottom, that means that that egg is very fresh. Even if the egg stays at the bottom and kind of stands on end, it's still fresh enough to eat. But if that egg floats all the way up to the top, that float test is definitely indicating that that egg is past its prime and you should pass on